Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Living into Our Greater Reality with Dr. Mark Pitstick, MA, DC, author, executive producer at soulproof.com. And I'm Charissa Sims, live event host for HumanityStream, a 501c3 nonprofit organization whose mission is to make conscious living pervasive worldwide by 2040. And I'm coming to you live from Lafayette, Colorado. Welcome, Mark. Where are you connecting from today?
Thank you very much. Right now I'm in Southern Ohio. Last evening I was in Sarasota, Florida.
Oh, wow. That's a big change, a big
A little
weather
bit.
shift.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I also want to welcome Dr. Mark's audience, those streaming live through the Humanity Team Facebook page, YouTube channel, and the Stream Plus members that are here in the green room with us. Welcome. Thanks for being members. I wanted to do a special shout out to the Sign Network with John and Summer Raymer. They are doing a campaign right now at sign.network called Compassion Games, and learn more at compassiongames.org/oneworld. Welcome. Because it's a live program, we will have time for comments and questions. Try to get your questions into Dr. Mark within the first 30 to 40 minutes and then post it in the chat, and you may get your question answered. So let me share a little bit more about Mark. He has over 50 years of experience helping people in hospitals, pastoral counseling settings, mental health centers, holistic healthcare practices. After working in hospitals with many suffering and dying adults and children, he was motivated to find evidence-based answers to many of life's important questions, like who am I? Why am I here? What happens after I die? Is there a God? Etc. He shares his findings in 8 books, 10 audio programs, 121 articles, and 25 radio shows. And we're blessed to have him as a provider on Stream Plus. Welcome, Dr. Mark.
Thank you, Carissa.
Well, we're so grateful to have you here today to share your wisdom with all of us so that we can live our greater reality and best life. Do you feel that you're an advanced soul who feels called to help others and the planet?
Oh, for myself, definitely. Yeah, when I was 6 years old, I told my parents that a beautiful sunset reminded me of God. And, I was a stranger in a strange land the rest of my life. So that's part of the reason why I'm so honored to be part of the humanities team because it's my assumption. I mean, no doubt about it. For people who are attracted to this, people who are watching live, who are watch recorded, they're more evolved souls, and evolved souls have a calling to help others, to serve, to make our world a better place. And when they do that, their life is very fulfilling. It energizes every aspect of their life. When they don't, they feel that creative discontent, malaise. And so the great news is, as we'll be sharing here, everything is in place now. And with all my training and experience and so on, maybe I'm one of the people whose job it was to assemble all this. Kind of like the guy, that kid that said the emperor was wearing no clothes. Well, in this case, it's a positive. It's saying world peace, no problem. We got it. And here's how. Here's the formula.
Wow, that's exciting. So, are you going to share the formula today?
I am.
Okay,
Uh,
awesome.
Yeah, but first of all, almost everything I'm sharing is in the 12-hour class uh, on Humanities Team. As
Okay.
we discussed before, that was 9 months ago. And so there's just been so much happening, and I'll share as much as I can in the brief amount of time. But Dr. Gary Schwartz, and let me just give a quick Gary Schwartz, PhD, former Harvard and Yale professor, now professor emeritus at University of Arizona. He's a genius. He's had 2 near-death experiences, and he's been working for 25 years to prove that life continues after bodily death. Scientists use words like survival of consciousness. And so he and I wrote a book in 18 called Greater Reality Living. Greater Reality is our term for all that exists because, and this is a real key to help you understand a lot of things, the average human is looking through a tiny pinhole and then wonders why things don't make sense or things seem so dark, hopeless, chaotic, cruel, when in fact, if you can enlarge that just a little bit, say a silver dollar size, you see that it's all good. Cosmos is really beautifully set up. So we created what's called the LIVES formula, which is an acronym. We're both big acronym fans. The LIVES formula to help people remember 5 steps they can take to improve every aspect of their life, literally. And I'm not just making this up, because we know people are on death's doors. People are paralyzed from the neck down. People have been raped, molested, lost their fortune, relationships, loved ones, multiple loved ones. I mean, I work all the time with helping parents heal, an organization. We have 80,000 bereaved parents from around the world. One of them had all 5 of her children pass. And so I've worked with the worst of the worst, and so has Dr. Schwartz. And so we know that this approach works if a person will put it to use. So let's dive in.
Yeah, I wanted to know what the lives stood for.
Yeah, first of all, this LIVES formula is based on what we call the great news. So we spent lots of time. I'm a spokesperson, strategic planner for the Soul Phone Project, also assist with research. And so we said, all right, well, what is the real nature of reality? Because you understand that so many people historically have relied on religion to understand matters about the meaning of life, death, and the afterlife. And unfortunately, they're really sadly lacking. That's why I went to theology school. I wanted to find out for myself about areas that didn't make sense. You got a God of unfathomable love, but there's a place of eternal hell. Perhaps you could end it. Any 5-year-old can tell you that doesn't make sense. So we spent a lot of time saying, okay, what do we know based on scientific and or clinical evidence? And all of these indications about how life is set up are also supported by many, many firsthand experiences, what we call experiential evidence. So this is the great news. I'll share just 5 of them because of our time constraints, but the whole list is at article number 19. And I'll be giving article numbers, as Charissa mentioned, at soulproof.com/articles. It's up to 125 articles now. Somebody stop me, please. But the first one is that we each are really beings of energy, consciousness, info energy, who exist after the earthly body dies. We're around before we came to Earth, and we're around afterwards. And that is described more in article number 15. And you hear about heaven and hell. Well, those levels of being, the quality of life, can exist now as well as in the next phase of life. It's a result of our level of consciousness, our degree of awakening, how much we understand really the mind of God. And so that's why it's so important to monitor our thoughts, words, and actions, because we literally can dial in to this wonderful life that everybody wants. The next item of the great news, and again, there are 11 of those, I'll share 5, is that we can interact with this, quote, deceased loved ones now and after they pass on. And the articles for that are article number 9 and 28. Excuse me, Dr. Schwartz in the late 1990s wrote the book called The Afterlife Experiments. He interviewed, or he researched, top mediums, people like John Edwards, for example, and he found that some mediums indeed have verifiable abilities to communicate with what we call post-material persons, people who have passed on. So we have worked out very well some basic steps, because you understand quite a few people, at least 30% of the average Americans, have spontaneous, what I call afterlife contacts. It's called after-death communications, but I'm trying to upgrade the terms. But there are ways to facilitate that, including a technique I created using hypnosis, deep relaxation, and guided imagery So the bottom line is you can interact, people or pets. You don't have to wait till you die and enjoy seeing them in the reunion. The next
And do
great
you do
news,
this?
pardon?
Are you a medium? Do you practice this? Communicate?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, I use it periodically to visit, but the level I'm working from, I mean, my mom and dad passed, for example, dear friends and so on. So I have vivid dreams, what I consider I go halfway toward them. They go, but actually, it's all right here and now. But yeah, I use it sometimes, and I've used it with thousands and thousands of people. And on average, 75% of people have one or more meaningful contacts. We're talking about feeling, seeing, hearing, and knowing their loved one's presence.
Hmm.
The next piece of good news is we each are integral, eternal, and beloved parts of Source right now. We're not separate from Source. We're not separate from each other, and we definitely don't die. And so more information about that, article number 13. That's what so many near-death experiencers come back saying, oh my God, we each are one with the one and part of Source. So, hello, that's useful to know, versus, please God, please listen to my prayers, what so many people were taught about how to interact with the ground of all being. The
Yeah,
next,
so that would mean a prayer or meditation or connecting would be connecting to the source within. Is that
yes,
what you're suggesting with that truth? Yeah.
yeah, and prayers of gratitude, not supplication, because we're one with that. The creator and sustainer of all that exists wants the highest and the best for all people. We can have it all. Um, the next thing is that we receive guidance, assistance, and love from angels, guides, and master teachers. And again, religions have taught that, but religions teach also some other things that are a bunch of hooey. And so some people say, well, is that really true? The nice thing is we have a lot of clinical evidence for the existence of angels, but some scientific evidence. We haven't really focused on it a lot, but I will just share two aspects of it. Years ago, and Dr. Schwartz wrote about this in his book, The Sacred Promise, he was doing spectrographic analysis of the energy of a post-material person named Susie Smith, and then an angel named Sophia, who has worked with the project over the years. So baseline is nobody's touching the sensors. Then when Susie touched it, and again, she passed on, I think, about 20 years ago, 25, it went from a dark image to bright orange, some red colors. When Sophia touched it, it was this pure white light. And the graphs and the data analysis of it was just will blow you away. And this has been repeated. And I had a personal experience where I was working with a team of three post-material persons with what we call the Tesla coil, the plasma globe, as a way to monitor their presence. And but one of the people I was working with was also that was also Sophia. So when I sat down, always everything's standardized because this is scientific research, and so I had to say the same thing to each person. So I turned toward the chair where the participants were supposed to be sitting. I can't see anything usually, but when I turned towards Sophia, say, "Okay, here's what I'd like you to do," in a fraction of a second, I saw three images like this. And the first was a beautiful woman, blonde hair, this flowing dress. And then just the next second, this swirl of energy, light, and colors. And then this huge angel that had to be like 15 feet tall with wings and everything. And I reported back to Dr. Schwartz, and he said, that's very interesting. You're the third person who's worked with Sophia who described the same sequence of perceptions. And, that's not scientific, but it sure is interesting clinically.
Yeah, right. Anecdotal evidence. There's a lot of angel practitioners on our Stream Plus platform. So our
Yes.
members are definitely used to seeing evidence of angels and experiences themselves. I've even heard members share. So that's amazing, though,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
witness that. And did you feel it Did you feel the energy too in your heart?
Oh, oh yeah, definitely. I felt it was a sacred presence, and I
Mhm.
was kind of tingling all over and all that. So yeah, a lot of people have had firsthand experiences, but it's also nice to have the clinical and even scientific proof because as a practitioner, I've been with many, many people as they pass. I found that religious teachings, but also even firsthand experiences can pale when a person is really facing the big moment, the big transition, or like, was that really true? You know, is what my church taught really true? And so that's part of the power of this new historic moment we're in to have the clinical and scientific evidence and people to know that. And then the last thing I'd like to share is that there's good evidence that we can multilocate. Michael Newton, for example, PhD, founder of Life Between Lives therapy, found that, and this is based on, I think they're up to 60,000 now client sessions, 4 hour long deep hypnosis, that on average, a person visiting Earth, and I say visiting because really it's time on Earth's a blink of an eye in the span of eternity, they only have to use about 40% of their life force, the totality of their energy, to manifest on Earth. The rest can be in other times and places, and part of it may never leave home. And Native Americans knew this. You know, I first heard this concept 30, 40 years ago. I saw Native American art that captured this idea of simultaneous realities, parallel experiences. So that's really cool. And one takeaway, for example, people who are grieving the passing of a loved one, I say, I know it's tough. You know, you don't have the physical hug, may not hear their voice like you used to, but there's good evidence, clinical and even quantum physics evidence that you may be with your loved one right now in another space-time slice of life. So there's so much hope here. So with that foundation of the great news, then let's dive into the lives formula. Unless you want to ask anything else.
Mhm. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you were in the middle of saying something.
That's all right.
So, yeah, thank you for sharing. I mean, this is just incredible. If anyone has any questions, we'd love to hear from you wherever you're watching. Just put it in the chat and you'll get your question answered. In the meantime, I'd like to play a clip from the great news, internalize the great news. And this course is on Stream Plus. Can we play that video, Jim?
So again, the goal is to journey from a superficial intellectual knowing to a deeply internalized one that is there for you no matter what's happening to you or going on around you. That's when the great news can inform every aspect of your life. Now, we talked about the great news in topic number 3 and 2. But to recall that list of 11 items about the nature of reality, how life is set up, you can see article number 19 at soulproof.com. Also, that list will be in the PDF that accompanies this course. Now, there are levels of internalization, and Dr. Gary Schwartz and I have certainly experienced this over the last 8 to 10 years we've been working together. After experiments, for example, I mean, one group of experiments we ran for about 6 months. The data was amazing. And we're like, oh my gosh, you know, we thought we really knew as deeply as you could that life continues after bodily death. But when you see that kind of scientific research, it just takes it up another notch. And then we've had personal experiences, first-hand experiences that have also heightened our level of internalization, deepened our certainty. Okay, perfect.
Beautiful. Yeah. Do you think that was perfect? Okay, go ahead.
All right, so yeah, that's a great lead in to the lives formula because I mentioned the first two. So the L in lives is learn the evidence for the great news. And as I mentioned, there's scientific research, and that's mentioned in article number 1 at soulproof.com. It's based on clinical research, which is article number 60. And then also the firsthand experiences, article number 115. I would just like to say a few words about the clinical research. This is defined as data collected by physicians, psychologists, and or university professors in clinical settings, hospitals, professional offices. And these are in the categories of near-death experiences, past life memories and past life regressions, perinatal experiences, which are reports from just before, during, and after human birth, the live between lives data, which I mentioned, Dr. Michael Newton's work, shared
I think that's
crossings.
fascinating. I've never heard that before. The lives between lives. It's cool.
It is. I'm reading his first book right now for the fifth time. It's answered more questions I've had since I was a kid than any other books I've read, except my own, of course. The next category of clinical evidence are called shared crossing experiences. Some call it shared death experiences, but I encourage people to move away from that word death because it has such strongly anchored meanings of the end or possibly the end when again, it's just the entry to the next phase of forever. Then there's what's called terminal lucidity, but I'm calling it pre-afterlife lucidity because there's nothing terminal about it. And then also deathbed visions is a current term. I'm working to change that to pre-afterlife visions. I mean, deathbed, what a horrible term. I'm on my deathbed, you know. How about pre-afterlife? You're on a diving board, getting ready to spring back to the really real place, home. So there's that. The I in the lives formula stands for internalize the great news. And as I mentioned a little bit in the clip you played, it's very important to have a deeply internalized knowing. That's what allows these people I mentioned who are dying, who have loved ones pass on, who get a terminal, oh, I just use that word, who get a diagnosis that they're going to be moving on soon, paralyzed, etc. There are people who have internalized so deeply who they are, why they're here, who walks beside them always, that it's really of little significance because they realize this human body and this human experience is such a small fragment of who and what we really are. And what we found, Chris, is that many people, because of old wounds, judgments, abuse, they're afraid to trust the great news. I mean, you could show them all the evidence because they've been wounded. They're afraid to believe that life can really be set up that wonderfully. So we have all sorts of ways to help people release this pain, like my holistic breathing technique discussed in article number 70. And then another thing is the past religious teachings, especially if these are from fundamentalist, fear-based, that really gets into a person's psyche. And so it takes some effort to overcome that and shake it off and say, no, that wasn't right. That has been changed. Again, why I went to theology school and studied the original Aramaic, the original teachings, and then the sorts of things that were changed purposely over time by powerful bishops and rulers, of course, to gain control, to gain more money. It's the same old story. Those are the beginner souls on earth that take advantage of others. But it's time now to really understand the great news, the truth about the nature of reality versus archaic and just plain wrong religious teachings. The
Mm,
V in Live's formula is vitalize and balance yourself holistically, and that's discussed in a lot of articles on my
yeah.
website. For example, 12, 32, 33, 88, and my book, Radiant Wellness. And the one reason that's so important is it's very difficult to even get by, let alone have enough vitality to brighten the corner where you are if you're chronically ill, fatigued, depressed, anxiety, which so many people have. And the good news is there are solutions for all that, holistic solutions. And so all this is discussed in the resources I just mentioned. And then a person can be a force in our world, part of the solution instead of part of the problem. I really want to emphasize this point because so many people who are evolved souls, and again, it's my assumption that people watching this, part of the team, are more evolved souls. That's why they are looking, searching for answers. But they're also more sensitive and empathic. And they really have to walk a fine line in how they take care of themselves, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. If they don't, they suffer. These kids I mentioned, working with helping parents heal, about 25% of these kids passed on via suicide or overdoses. And can never be totally sure whether it's accidental or purposeful.
Mhm.
But one reason for that is these kids are evolved souls. You hear the same story almost from so many parents. When the kids were little, they looked right through the parent. They had the eyes of an old soul. They were unreasonably compassionate, loving. They loved animals, pets. They didn't have to be on Earth long, but for some of them, perhaps their passing was hastened because of heavy metals, chemicals, all the vaccinations, nutritional deficiencies, etc. And so their super highly refined energy couldn't coexist with a brain that had been so assaulted by all these things I just mentioned. And so we want to address this. And for those who are watching, you can look at your own life and say, okay, I probably am a more evolved, sensitive soul, which is a good thing. And so it behooves me to fine tune the temple of my soul so I can do what I came here to do and how to have a wonderful life. By the way, I just mentioned one of my books, Radiant Wellness, and my policy is, and I mentioned this in the Humanities Team course, the
Mhm.
articles are free. The radio shows are free. I interviewed under radio shows at soulproof.com. I interviewed people like Wayne Dyer and Brian Weiss and Raymond Moody and Michael Newton before he passed and others. Those are
We
all
have
free.
Raymond Moody. He's one of our providers. Yeah,
Yeah,
on Stream
he's
Plus.
awesome. Um, so free articles, free newsletters, free radio shows. But then my books and audio products, 8 books, 10 audio products, they're only $15. But for people living in a third world country, that's a lot of money. Also, sometimes the exchange, the currency doesn't allow for them to use credit cards. So my policy is if people can't afford it or can't complete the purchase for some reason, email me, mark@soulproof.com. We'll send you free digital copies of any of these because I want people all around the world to have the information, the resources, because with that, it's a done deal. We're going to reach it and we need all hands on deck. The E in the lives formula is enjoy the greatest life you have envisioned. And I use all caps for the word you because, as it turns out, souls come here not to have safety, comfort, easy. They want challenges. They want to grow. They want to serve. They have adventures. That's one reason Joseph Campbell talked about the hero's journey. And that's one reason we like movies and books and so on that feature heroes and heroines and adventurers, because that's really what we are. Timeless beings who come here in this tough place. But if we can learn our lessons, remember who we are here, we can do it everywhere. And then that's when we become masters and can help others. So the point is that what you as an earthling, say your ego, your brain might want, may not be what your real self wants. And so it's really important to make that distinction. So I discuss all this more, article number 21 and 124, how to create the greatest life you have envisioned. And there's an audio to assist with that. And finally, the S in the lives formula is serve others, and make our world a better place. And of course, that's the theme of the Humanities Team course I created, and I discuss that in article number 119 as well.
So how can fulfilling our mission create a positive spiral for our life?
Yeah, it's all about energy. You understand, I'm sure, Chris, that even though we appear to be solid, it's really a dance of energy. Ram Dass, one of my early teachers, wrote the book, The Only Dance There Is. And he was talking about the dance of energy. So although we look solid to our limited brain and set five senses, really we're just a bunch of electrons whirring around in 99.9% space. This is how Dr. Gary Schwartz and I met. Um, I have been using a metaphor from Lynn McTaggart's book, The Field, in which she interviewed top quantum physicists. And they said that all that really exists in our world, and we're talking again, energy, information, light, consciousness, if all that exists in our world were the size of Mount Everest, the portion the average human can perceive would be the size of a golf ball. And I interviewed Gary, Dr. Schwartz, and also we were on the group Eternia together, Eben Alexander, John Audette, Raymond Moody, and others. And Dr. Schwartz used another metaphor. If all that exists in our world were the height of the Empire State Building, the portion the average human can perceive would be the height of a coat of paint. So that's how very little we understand about the nature of reality. So when we start seeing more of life and we realize it's all energy, it's all good, it's all God, we're one with the one. We couldn't die if we tried. And there is a reason and a purpose for all that. And when we really get that, to your question, then our energy is so high. I mean, this is how people heal spontaneously. My dear friend Anita Morjani, who also is interviews one of the radio shows, her story. She had cancer all throughout her body, fought it for years and years, and finally her body died. Had a profound near-death experience, and when she came back from the light, felt pretty good. She said, "I think I could walk around." And yeah, I'd like to be more active. And they said, wait a minute. So they started running tests. And the beautiful thing about her experience is, and Dr. Wayne Dyer really helped spread this and get it out, is she has pre and post medical records that document all of this. And the post tests were run after her near-death experience. There was no sign of cancer. So that's a extreme example, but it
Yeah,
literally,
I also am healed from cancer and have no sign of cancer. But I can I interrupt with some comments and questions?
please.
Okay, I want to make sure you finished your thought about that. But I love her book, Anita Morjani. So we have a comment. I love this perspective. We didn't come here for comfort. That's interesting. We came here to expand and have a life of adventure, right? So Sandra asks, is that the same Dr. Gary Schwartz who has researched Suzanne Gieseman's mediumship skills?
Yes, Suzanne is one of our advisors, one of our medium advisors. We just had a meeting last August. In fact, I'll get to that a little later on. Yeah, Suzanne's a rock star, also Mark Anthony, and Tina Powers, um, and others. So they're on the listed on the front page, the home page of the website, soulphone.org. Yeah, Suzanne's one of our go-to. We're like, Suzanne, we'd like to validate. We're getting this information. Can you check in and see? Because when we have 3 or 4 different mediums reporting the same thing, excuse me, independently, that gives us some pretty good clinical data to then move ahead in the research.
Yeah, that's amazing. Suzanne Giesemann is one of our top providers here at Humanities Team and recipient of an award, the Humanities Team Award this year.
Yes.
in spiritual leadership. Well, I wanted to play another clip from your course, and this is about enjoy the greatest life you have envisioned. Can we play that second clip, Jim?
So, what you envision, that is your higher self, may not be what your brain based consciousness, ego, limited perspective wants. I trained with Brian Weiss 25 years ago to do past life regressions. And he said, what people often want is for life to be safe, easy, very convenient, comfortable. Souls usually don't care for any of that. They want adventure. They want growth. They want to serve. They want to have the excitement. So that's really important to remember. So when you consider the greatest life, your dreams, that's what we're looking at. Now, ideally, both aspects of yourself are happy. Through these videos, we've talked about your brain-based consciousness, your transcendent source of consciousness. And the ideal is for both of them to be happy, peaceful, fulfilled. Not always possible, but that's something to shoot for. So,
What do you think about that?
yeah, it's it's timely, and excuse me. This one of the reasons I emphasize this, excuse me, is because so many people lose hope. When they suffer, they say, why would God do this to me? Like the most common question I get from parents is, why did God take my child? And I just go, oh my gosh, we can do a better job at educating. First of all, God didn't take it. Your child is an eternal soul who maybe is more advanced than you and I. Secondly, your child didn't go anywhere. He or she's probably standing right beside you. And then the souls involved volunteered to do this. And that's why the
Yeah.
area of pre-birth planning is so important. I discussed this in article number 25. And there was an audio program to allow people to visit the time before coming to Earth, the time of pre-birth planning, and recall what was planned, who was involved, what were we thinking, and then with that information, how can I create this amazing life and fulfill all of our goals? So I'd like to share next, unless there are any other questions or comments,
Yeah,
Chris.
I have a few. Actually, I
Okay.
do have some, and then we can go back to that. But I just had a question about that. So you're saying the children have a contract with their parents in the soul realm before they're born, and they're highly evolved, and they choose to leave this planet early.
That's basically correct, but let me make a couple modifications. They
Okay.
may they may have a contract, we can't say for sure. And that's one of the reasons why it's useful for all people to experience it themselves, to go within deep, because as you know, when you quiet the brain, then the rest of your knowing comes to the fore. And it's like, yeah, we planned this, and here's why. The second thing is that these plans are potentialities, possibilities. They're not set in stone. Otherwise, things would be predetermined, and why bother?
Okay. Interesting. Thank you for that perspective. So let me ask some of these questions and say some comments. This is from YouTube. Love this. I have issues around imposter syndrome, self-doubt about guides I met during an NDE 20 years ago and clairaudient messages recently. The religion and chronic illness issues resonated. Okay. So, did you get the question out of that, or I can rephrase it?
Well, what I would say to that person is, because I'm not going to be able to answer that in 30 seconds, email me.
Okay.
Okay.
You
Part
can,
part
yeah.
of what I do is because I have so many resources, I've been working on this for 52 years since I started working in hospitals at 19. I have all these resources. So I would just say, email me, okay, mark@soulproof.com, and give me a more detailed list. What are your symptoms? What are your struggles? What are your questions? And literally in 5 minutes, I can say, read this, do this for 90 days, and then get back with me and we'll see where you're at.
Oh my gosh. And you just do that like out of the kindness of your heart for free.
Free.
It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
Okay.
here. That's what I'm here for.
Okay. Well, we have some beautiful quotes from Light Being Love. We are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. I remember Wayne Dyer used to say that a lot.
Yep.
Love is the bridge between you and everything, Rumi, and we're all just walking each other home, Ram Dass. So,
Love it. Love it.
yeah, that's beautiful. Well, is your holistic breathing technique a strategy to help us live our best life, be healthier? Could we do an exercise? Would you be open to that?
Well, the holistic breathing technique takes 45 minutes.
Oh, okay.
It's one of the free audios in the 12-hour course with
Oh, got it.
HumanityStream.
Yeah,
But
so we can
it's
look on it.
described in article number 70, and the audio program is under shop. But yeah, it's holotropic breathing like Stan Groff's, Jacqueline Small, and others. By creating my own version. In fact, at the request of Suzanne Giesman, we did a 3-day workshop together years ago in St. Pete, and I was using another one. She said, Mark, she was a commander in the Navy, so when she says something, you got to do it. And
We
she's like,
commanded you.
Mark, I think you ought to create your own. I'm like, aye, aye. And so we used it. It was amazing. So yeah, I really encourage people. One of the big things is to release those wounds because, we talked about we're sensitive souls and there's just so much pain and suffering around. But at some point we get overwhelmed, like we're up to here with it. If we can release all this in the past, then we can get clear. We can remember who we are, why we're here, that it's all good and it's all God.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I've done some incredible breathing workshops where I had such a huge emotional and traumatic release of trapped emotions. So I think it's really, really important as humans to heal and move on with our lives. Well, it's a full moon today. Do you feel like this energy can help us move forward in our lives? Do you think about that at all?
I don't get too involved in that. My belief
Yeah.
is that
Okay.
we are so powerful. I mean, we're one with the one. We're drops of God. And so I say, no matter what the signs are or what's in full moon or what's in retro, I don't give a shit really. We're here to let it shine and we're so much more powerful. So if I might, let me share
Yeah.
super exciting what's going on. So all of you watching, all of you be watching later, we truly live in an auspicious time, a historical time, because there's never before been talk about in alignment. We're not talking about stars, although I'm sure that all that has an effect. I don't discount it. I just think that we can do what we came here to do, no matter what's going on, if we're that focused so that truly widespread conscious living and world peace are possible. And let me give a brief overview of what happened. I had been having a series of dreams, downloads, and I'd wake up at 3 in the morning for a couple of hours, and I would just take page after page of notes. So last August, I was at the third Helping Parents Heal conference. I'm on the board. I've been involved with them for 11 years. We had over 1,100 attendees. And these are all parents that have had one or more children pass. And you would think, oh my God, it has to be so tough. No, they're some of the most amazing people you would ever meet. They're like near-death experiencers, many of them, because one of our mottos in Helping Parents Heal is when a child passes or any other adversity you deal with, It can make you better or bitter. It's a choice. How do you respond to it? Do you look for the silver linings and sharing with others, or do you lay down and, start a pity party? So I'm speaking to a group of 800 parents, and I'm talking about the theme that had been emerging in my dreams and my knowing that is it possible that all of these kids, we call them kids, even though, some of them passed at middle age, part of their pre-birth planning potential was to awaken enough people. Because as we mentioned, some of these kids are like canary in the coal mines. They're saying, my God, do kids really need 100 vaccinations by college age? How about if we get rid of some of the chemicals and heavy metals, like Bobby Kennedy's trying to get done? How about if we have real food that's grown in topsoil that actually contains nutrients? And so is it possible that so many of these kids, by their passing, again, some of them suicide, some of them addicts because they're trying to numb themselves out because the earth is so cruel. And so many of their parents respond by becoming loving activists. They're like, you know what? I'm going to find the meaning to this. I'm going to honor my kid. I'm going to make them proud of me. I'm going to try to prevent any other parents from going through what I did. And so I said, is it possible that all of you are involved in this meta program and all of your kids that could make a difference in our world? Well, as I said that, I just glanced up and I saw, as clearly as I can see you, Charissa, thousands and thousands of smiling faces. I'm getting teared up talking about babies, kids, teenagers, and they were all smiling and clapping. Now, this is a 30-foot high ceiling at Grand Sheraton. And then all these faces went into the sky and up into the clouds. And they were applauding, and the message I got, and keep in mind, this happened a fraction of a second. They're like, good, they're finally getting it. Well, and I was like, whoa, that was heavy. And so I looked back down, I continued with my presentation. And right afterwards, a mom came up and she said, you are so right. There is a way to heal from this. Part of it is helping others. And she shared me this story. And and it's just a beautiful example of how we can make this breakthrough. Her story was she was a single parent. Her 18-year-old son was her life. They were so close. He died in an auto accident, his body died in an auto accident. He didn't die. His real self is so much more than his body. And she was devastated. She didn't have anything else to live for, she thought. And she decided to choose suicide. And she was sitting on the floor in the corner of her room, bottle of alcohol in one and a bottle of pills in the other. She was getting ready to take them. She wanted to be with her son. She just couldn't take it anymore. So she thought. Just then her son's phone rang and she said, well, I might as well answer it and see who's calling. And it was her son's best friend. This mom was so devastated, she didn't even get it together to let people know their son passed. She just went ahead with the cremation and then she was going to pass. So she said to the friend, I'm so sorry, he passed on 3 days ago. And the guy said, oh, I just flew in to surprise him. So he starts crying. She said, come on over. And so they cried together, they told stories, but then they started laughing together because they realized how grateful they were to be in the presence of such a highly evolved, loving, amazing character, even for a while. Well, the friend got ready to leave and the mom said, I just want to let you know, you saved my life. She said, when you called, I was getting ready to pass on by suicide. So the next morning she woke up and she said, okay, if I'm going to keep taking the high road, I need to get out and help others. She understood that concept. So she volunteered at a pet rescue center. The very first person that came in was a young lady who is disheveled, obviously been crying, just shaking. And she said, can I see the most friendly dog you have? And the mom said, sure, and brought out this dog. The young lady hugged this dog and cried for a half hour. And then finally it was over. The mom's talking to her and they're talking back and forth. And yeah, I know it's tough. My son just passed on a few days ago, but there's a way. And the young lady said, okay, I'll take the dog, but I want to let you know you saved my life, because when I came in here today, I had planned on choosing suicide this evening. I just wanted to get some love from somebody or something before I passed. And when I heard that, I said, oh my God, that's it? That's perfect. All we have to do is help one person. When you feel like you can't go on another moment, reach out, look around. How can I serve? So 2 days later, we had a meeting with the Soul Phone Project people I mentioned. Dr. Gary Schwartz, his wife Rhonda, Suzanne Giesman, Mark Anthony, my fiance Andy, who's one of the mediums involved. So we were sitting around talking and catching up because we meet periodically in person. And one of them said, have any of you been getting communications from other people, other dimensions, that they are really working to help save our world? And everyone had, independently. And I was like, oh my God, it's happening. So the following week, I gave a webinar for Helping Parents Heal. And I shared what I saw during the conference. It's the first time I told anybody because so much was happening. When I started describing that, Elizabeth Boyson, who is the co-founder of Helping Parents Heal, said, oh my God, that's what he meant. I said, what do you mean? Her son Morgan passed, and she had telepathic communication with him, as well as a big physical hug from him at the moment of his passing. And she said, he keeps telling me, Mom, working with us kids is going to save the world. And she said, I didn't understand what it meant, but now we're putting all this together. So that really set the stage. So what kept coming in was, I'm calling now the 8 developments. And these are described in article number 125, and I'll just share 4 of them. These are, again, recent developments that are tipping. It's not going to become a matter of, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. As more people get this, like, it's time, and lend their support to it, do what they can, it's going to happen. And so the first one is the Soul Phone Project announcements and demonstrations later this year, probably in the autumn. So Dr. Schwartz right now is completing a series of research studies that will scientifically prove, it already has, but he's assembling all this, going to write a journal, scientific journal paper, and then write a book called The Soul Phone Experiments that, again, scientifically proves life continues after death. We'll share that data, in addition, demonstrate the technology that we have that gives binary yes/no answers from post-material persons, those who have passed on. So when people learn those announcements and see the demonstrations, that's going to cause a huge paradigm shift. Some good, some bad. It depends on where a person is. The second factor is awakened activists. I mentioned near-death experiencers. I mentioned these parents, what we call shining light parents, and then also the 15 percenters, which is the approximate number, again, based on Michael Newton's work, of people on Earth right now who are more intermediate to advanced souls. Many of them came here as part of their mission to make our world a better place, to reach that tipping point. And so that's an army of people waiting kind of for their directions, like, who has a program together? How do we do that? And that's part of what we're doing. A third factor of the 8 are organizations like HumanityStream. I have a list of 20 of them in this article, number 125. They are all working toward the same thing, widespread conscious living. And so I'm providing all of my resources, information to all of them free so they can share with their members. And then the fourth thing is, for greater reality programs I created. And because of the time, I can't go into much, but briefly, greater reality living, how we can live the greatest life of our dreams, every aspect of our life. That's in article number 72. Greater reality healing. This is article number 82. I've created a program of healing, much like Helping Parents Heal uses, for everyone else. If you've had a spouse, a sibling, a parent, a pet that's passed, how can you optimally grieve? How can you journey quickly from deeply grieving to brightly shining and make your loved one proud of you and fulfill your plans? The next Greater Reality program is Greater Reality Helping, and that's what is in the 12-hour course on HumanityStream, and it's described in article number 119. And then finally, Greater Reality Sharing, article 122. How can individuals and leaders in organization, visionary thought leaders, share this with as many people as possible so that we can reach, I really think if we can reach 1% of people on Earth, it's a done deal. You know, it's going to happen. So make sure you see those, please. 72, 82, 119, and 122. So finally, for my wrap, those who are watching live, those who are going to be watching, I encourage you, I invite you to listen to your inner heart. If you feel called to help with this, to learn more, to watch the HumanityStream course, I hope you do so, because that will, as we've discussed, improve every aspect of your life. It'll help others, and it can make our world a better place. And who knows which person will be the 100th monkey, will help reach that tipping point. So that's why I ask, we need all hands on deck to do this. Talk about adventures. I can't think of a more marvelous adventure. So again, email me, mark@soulproof.com if you have any questions. If you have specific concerns like blocks, I'll help you get through this. And one of the reasons I'm willing to take the time and do that free is because everyone else you help from there on, I had a little part to do in that.
Yeah,
That's
that's
all I got,
amazing. Well,
Charissa.
well, we're not done yet. So, but thank you. So we've got some comments. Ocean Girl says, everything you're talking about is resonating so deeply. I'm humbled by the synchronicities, insights, gifts, blessings. Thank you. And then we've got love, light energy from Facebook, 100% true. Pure source vibration. Time to create, wake up. And it says, thank you. Full of gratitude for this webinar and the work you do, Mark. Thank you for hosting, sending love and light. Well, I wanted to show another clip. This is on sharing your special talents, because I feel like you're inviting us to take action. Can we play that clip?
Some people have wondered what would it take to awaken a sufficient number of people to make positive, major differences in our world. The answer is surprisingly simple. Follow your highest calling. Share your special talents. Give your greatest gifts. Do what interests and excites you. And as more and more people do that, the pieces of the world's puzzle come together. As a youth, I thought that only ministers could, quote, have a calling. I remember when I first heard about that, I was like, have a calling? Well, that sounds like a really important thing. But now I realize that any job, any life work, hobby, service that you do that nourishes your soul, helps others, and makes our world a better place is a calling. You don't have to work long and hard at it. Just follow your heart and share your special gifts, even part-time. And that makes such a difference. That formula applied by enough people is sufficient to make our world a better place, to help others, to solve the problems that seem so overwhelming.
Well, thank
I
you,
agree.
Mark. Thank you, Mark. Go ahead. Do you want to say something quick? Yeah.
Yeah, I say I agree with that guy, and I'm glad I'm not wearing the same shirt as during that recording.
Oh, that's perfect. Well, thank you to our audience. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for Living into Our Greater Reality with Dr. Mark Pitstick. His course, Greater Reality Living, is available now on the Stream Plus platform. Join Stream Plus now and gain immediate access to this incredible program. I've watched it and it's incredible. You'll get access to Dr. Mark's course along with hundreds of other incredible spiritual teachers and programs. And we're proud to say that HumanityStream Plus is the largest global streaming platform for consciousness raising masterclasses and transformational education. And we are a nonprofit and also give back with our One for One program. I wanted to thank Dr. Mark, Steve Farrell, Dee Meyer, and the production team, Jim Gray, Garth Catterall, Andy Gutsky, Karen Weissert, Nanette Kennedy, and the rest of Humanity's team. Blessings.